The market of chains, the twin suns were high above the alien city, throwing sharp light over the marketplace. Heat rose from the metal streets, making the air shimmer. Crowds of creatures moved through the market, their voices mixing into a strange, endless noise. Some had scales, others had fur, some walked on four legs, some floated above the ground, but they all had one thing in common: eyes hungry for trade, for power, for control. In the center of the market stood the auction of chains. It was a raised platform made of black steel, with cages lined up on both sides. Inside the cages were living beings from many worlds. Some had long arms with shimmering skin, others had eyes that glowed like fire. They had been captured, sold, and traded for years. No one here came by choice. In the smallest cage, at the far corner, stood a human girl. Her knees were weak, her throat dry, her hands shaking. She wore nothing but a torn cloth around her shoulders, her bare feet pressed against the cold metal floor. The auctioneer, a tall alien with insect-like arms, shouted over the noise, "Next lot! Human female. Weak build, no special skills, unwanted by her own." The crowd laughed, some hissed, some whispered in their alien languages. To them, a human was rare, but not valuable. Humans were small, fragile, and did not survive long in the hard labor of alien worlds. She kept her eyes down, afraid to meet the stares. Every laugh felt like a blade cutting into her. The auctioneer tried again. "Start the bid. 1 unit for the human." No hands were raised, no voices called. The crowd began to lose interest, turning toward other cages, toward stronger, stranger creatures. The girl's heart pounded. This was the end. If no one bought her, the traders would take her to the back alleys where the unwanted were left to die or be torn apart by the city's scavengers. The auctioneer clicked his mandibles in frustration. Useless thing. Who will take her? Half a unit. Still, silence. The crowd shifted away, their attention already caught by a large reptilian beast in the next cage. The girl felt her chest tighten. Her mouth was too dry to even beg. She closed her eyes and tried not to cry, but then, a movement in the corner of her vision. A tall figure stood in the shadows between two stalls. He wore a long hooded cloak, dark brown and dusty. The hood covered most of his face, but she could feel his eyes on her, unlike the others. His gaze was not mocking, not hungry. It was searching, watching her like he was measuring something unseen. The auctioneer saw him and shouted, "You! In the cloak, you want the human? Cheap price." The figure stepped forward slowly. The crowd turned to look, and a ripple of surprise went through them. It was a human male, a real human, taller and broader than the girl, with a strong build and quiet steps. Humans were almost never seen here. Most had been driven to the edges of the galaxy long ago. Some aliens muttered in their own tongues, some hissed in annoyance. Humans were trouble, humans were dangerous. The auctioneer grinned with his sharp teeth. Well, a human for a human. Maybe you want one of your own kind?" The man did not answer. Instead, he reached inside his cloak and took out a small, flat object. It was made of dark metal, with strange glowing lines running through it. The moment the auctioneer saw it, his laughter stopped. The crowd leaned. Incurious, the alien's antennae twitched nervously. "Where did you get that?" he asked in a lower voice. The man said only 4 words. "Is it enough trade?" The alien stared at the object for a long moment, then nodded quickly. Yes, take her. She is yours." The deal was made without any more words. The cage doors swung open with a hiss. The girl blinked in shock. No one had ever moved so quickly for her. The man stepped forward, pulling the torn cloth tighter around her shoulders. "Come," he said quietly. His voice was calm, deep. She tried to ask him why, but the words stuck in her throat. They stepped down from the platform and into the moving crowd. Aliens stared as they passed, some whispering, some frowning. The man moved fast, guiding her between stalls. She almost tripped trying to keep up, behind them. The auctioneer closed the metal box around the strange glowing object and hid it under the table. His eyes followed the pair until they disappeared into the maze of the market. Somewhere above, a black drone turned slowly, its red light blinking. As it tracked their movement, the girl didn't see the drone. She was too busy trying to breathe, too busy trying to understand what had just happened. All she knew was this: a stranger, another human, had stepped forward when no one else would. But she could feel it in her bones. This was not kindness alone. This was something else, something bigger, and whatever it was, it had already begun. The human stranger. The market noise faded as they moved deeper into the narrow streets. The girl's bare feet slapped against the warm metal ground, every step sending a sting through her solace. Her torn cloth barely covered her, and she clutched it tight while glancing at the tall man beside her. He didn't look at her, not once. He just kept walking with long, sure steps, like he knew exactly where to go. The alien city surrounded them, alive and dangerous. Towering buildings leaned over the streets, their surfaces covered with glowing signs in strange languages. From high above came the hum of airships, their shadows sliding across the ground. Strange smells drifted from open stalls: burnt oil, sharp spices, the sour stench of alien food. Crowds moved around them, some ignoring them, others staring. More than once, she saw a pair of glowing eyes following them from the dark corners. "Why did you help me?" she finally asked, her voice small. The man didn't answer. He didn't even turn his head. Instead, he reached into his cloak and pulled out a folded piece of cloth thicker and cleaner than hers. Without a word, he draped it over her shoulders, covering her completely. It smelled faintly of smoke and metal. "Keep it on," he said. His voice was deep, steady, but there was no softness in it. They passed a group of alien guards in black armor. Their helmets had insect-like shapes, and their weapons glowed faint blue. The man shifted his path slightly, pulling her into the shadow of a metal wall until the guards were gone. Her heart pounded. He was careful, too careful. This wasn't just about taking her away from the market. He was hiding from someone. Finally, they turned into a quieter alley where the noise of the market was far behind. She tried again. "You could have left me there, but you didn't." This time, he slowed his steps just enough to speak. "I don't leave my own kind behind," he said. It wasn't the answer she expected. It sounded less like kindness, and more like a rule. Before she could ask more, he added, "But don't think you're safe yet." The words chilled her. Safe from what? She asked. "From everyone," he replied, and just as he said it, movement flickered at the edge of her vision. 3 figures stepped out from a side passage, tall, armored, their faces hidden behind glass masks. The masks glowed faint green, and each figure carried a curved weapon pulsing with light. The man's hand shot out, pulling her behind him. The figures spoke in a sharp alien tongue, their voices metallic. She didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. They wanted her. The man reached inside his cloak again. This time, his hand came out holding a compact black weapon. It was shaped like a pistol, but hummed with a low, dangerous energy. The first figure took a step forward, raising his weapon. The man didn't wait. A flash of light cut through the air, striking the alien's chest and throwing him backward into the wall. The other 2 rushed forward, but the man moved fast. One swing of his arm, and the second attacker's weapon clattered to the ground. He kicked the third square in the chest, sending him sprawling. The girl's breath caught. He wasn't just strong. He was trained. Every move was sharp and precise, like he'd done this 100 times before. Within seconds, the 3 figures were down, groaning and twitching from the energy blasts. The man didn't stop to check on them. He grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward a wide, glowing archway. At the end of the alley, the archway led to an open landing platform. A small shuttle sat waiting, its engines already running. She didn't know if it was his or if he had stolen it. All she knew was that the moment they stepped inside, the hatch slammed shut behind them. He moved to the pilot's seat, his fingers flying over the controls. The shuttle rose, lifting, Above the rooftops of the alien city, below, the streets became smaller and smaller until they vanished into the haze. The girl stared out the window as the city faded into the distance. She should have felt relief, but instead, a new fear was growing. She was alone in space, with a stranger who had just risked his life to take her. But why? She turned to him. "Who are you?" she asked. For a moment, he didn't answer, only staring at the endless stars ahead. Finally, he said, "Someone who knows what you're worth, even if you don't." She didn't understand. She had nothing, no skills, no power, nothing to make her valuable. But his tone told her one thing: whatever he believed she was worth, others believed it too, and they would come for her. Escape through the city. The shuttle didn't fly far. Instead of leaving the planet, the man took a sharp turn and brought the small craft down toward another part of the city. From the window, the girl saw tall metal towers shaped like spines, glowing with green light. The air was darker, filled with smoke and the faint hum of generators. The man landed the shuttle in a hidden bay between two leaning towers. Before she could ask why, he was already on his feet. "We can't leave yet," he said. "Why not?" she asked, her voice shaking. "They'll track the shuttle. Every exit is being watched." His tone was certain, as if he had done this many times before. He gave her a small pouch and pulled the cloak tighter around her. "Stay close. Keep your head down." They stepped into the shadows of the bay and moved quickly into the maze of streets. The lower city was nothing like the market. Here, the walkways were narrow, the walls rusted and covered with alien symbols sprayed in glowing paint. Machines clanked in the distance, and somewhere far below, water dripped in steady beats tall. Figures with mechanical arms moved past them, their faces hidden behind steel masks. Small insect-like creatures scurried along the walls, their many eyes glinting. Everything smelled of oil, smoke, and danger. The man kept one hand inside his cloak, where his weapon was hidden. The girl tried to keep up, but the streets twisted like a knot. Every turn looked the same. She noticed some creatures were watching them. They weren't shoppers like in the market. They were hunters, and she realized that here, in these shadows, there were no guards to protect anyone. They reached a wide square lit by a massive flickering screen. It showed alien news images of battles in far-off systems, strange ships exploding in the void. Then, without warning, the image changed. Her breath froze. On the screen was her face. The photo was from the market, taken while she was in the cage. Alien text flashed under it, with bright red symbols she didn't understand. But she didn't need to read the words to know the meaning. She was wanted. The man's jaw tightened. "They've already spread your image across the sector," he said. "How? We just left." She whispered. "They were waiting for this," he replied, scanning the crowd. That was when she noticed something. The crowd wasn't just watching the screen. They were looking for her. A shout came from the far side of the square. Two tall aliens in black armor had spotted them. Their helmets had glowing red eyes. The man's hand shot out, grabbing hers. "Run," he said. They bolted into the nearest alley, the sound of heavy boots behind them. The alley was a tangle of pipes, dripping steam and buzzing with strange insects. She almost slipped on a slick metal plate, but he pulled her forward. The boots grew louder. They turned sharply, ducking. Under low beams, a burst of blue light sizzled past her ear and struck the wall ahead. She flinched. The smell of burnt metal filled the air. They dashed through a tunnel lit by dim red lights. The man stopped at a rusted gate, kicked it open, and pulled her into a narrow maintenance corridor. Pipes hissed overhead, and the floor vibrated with the sound of machinery. The hunters' voices echoed behind them. He tapped a small device on his wrist. A faint holographic map appeared for a moment before fading. "This way," he said. They came out into another street, but this one was filled with stalls selling strange mechanical parts. Vendors shouted in alien tongues, their eyes flicking toward the running pair. One of the armored hunters burst into the street behind them, pushing through the crowd. The man didn't slow. He leapt over a table, knocking over crates of glowing crystals. The girl followed, the crystals clinking and rolling across the street. An alien vendor screamed curses at them. But the chase didn't stop. They reached a suspended walkway high above the ground below. The lower city stretched into darkness. The wind here was stronger, pulling at her cloak. She looked back. 3 hunters were on the walkway now, weapons ready. The man turned suddenly. Firing 2 quick shots, 1 hunter fell, the second stumbled. But kept coming. Go! He shouted, pushing her forward. The walkway ended at a closed door. He slammed his hand against a panel. The door hissed open. Inside was a dim stairwell spiraling downward. They ran, the metal steps ringing under their feet. She could still hear the hunters above, shouting and firing. At the bottom, they burst out into a massive underground dock. Rows of small ships floated above a glowing pool of liquid fuel. The man's eyes scanned quickly until he spotted a black, angular craft tucked in the far corner. This way, he said, pulling her toward it. Just as they reached it, one of the hunters dropped from the ceiling, blocking their path. The man didn't hesitate. He moved like lightning, knocking the weapon aside and striking the hunter's mask with his elbow. The glass cracked. A hiss of alien breath escaped. The hunter stumbled back, and the man shoved him into the fuel pool. The liquid burned like acid, and the hunter's scream echoed through the dock. The man grabbed her arm again, and they climbed into the black craft. Within seconds, the engines roared to life. The dock fell away beneath them as the ship rose. Into the darkness, the girl sat in the co-pilot seat, her hands gripping the armrests. She didn't know where they were going, but she knew one thing. The whole city had just become their enemy. The chase. The black craft shot upward, leaving the underground dock behind. Metal walls rushed past the windows until the ship burst into the open night sky. But this was no quiet escape. The city was alive with light search beams crisscrossed the sky like the webs of giant spiders. Alarms echoed from the towers and from the corner of her eye. The girl saw movement in the clouds. The man's hands moved quickly over the controls. "Hold on," he said. The girl gripped the armrests tighter. From the haze above, 3 sleek alien skimmers dropped into view, their hulls glowing with blue energy lines, their long wings curved like blades, and their engines screamed like predators. They were hunting them. One of the skimmers fired first. A beam of white light cutting past the cockpit. The girl flinched. As the glass shimmered under the heat, the man rolled the craft sharply to the left, the city lights tilting under them. Another shot blazed by, striking a tall tower. Metal exploded in a shower of sparks, raining down into the streets below. "They'll call more," he muttered. "Who are they?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Not traitors, not guards. Hunters," he said. "They don't stop, ever." The second skimmer closed in. The man yanked the ship downward, diving between 2 massive bridges. The engines roared and the wind screamed around them. They weaved through tight spaces, forcing the hunters to follow at dangerous angles. One skimmer clipped the side of a bridge, spinning out before crashing into a warehouse in a ball of fire. But 2 remained. They fired again, and one shot struck the back of the man's ship. A warning light flashed red on the console. "Rear shield." "At 30%, he said. The girl's stomach dropped. "How long can it last?" "Long enough if you keep quiet," he replied, eyes locked forward. They broke through the edge of the city into the open skies beyond. Below was the dark ocean, its surface broken by sharp black rocks and swirling mist. The skimmers followed. Close, their lights cutting across the waves. The man pushed the throttle, and the black craft surged forward. But the hunters matched his speed. Suddenly, the man banked hard to the right, heading toward a cluster of massive vertical cliffs that rose from the ocean like the teeth of some sleeping monster. Waves crashed against the stone, sending sprays of water high into the air. "Why are we going there?" she asked. "They won't expect it," he said. Before she could reply, he took the ship low. Skimming just above the waves, water droplets streaked across the cockpit glass. The first skimmer dived after them, but the second stayed higher. Tracking their path, The man made a sudden turn into a narrow gap between two cliffs. The walls were so close she could see cracks and glowing moss on the stone. One wrong move and they'd smash into rock. The hunters followed, their engines echoing off the cliff walls. Inside the canyon, the wind was fierce, and the sky was almost gone, replaced by jagged stone overhead. The girl could hear the hunters' engines closing in. The man tapped the control, and the ship's lights shut off. Now they flew in near darkness. Only the faint glow of the moss lit the way. They can't lock onto us without visual, he whispered. But the sound of the engines told her they were still close. Without warning, the man pulled the ship upward into a hidden crack in the canyon wall. The space was just big enough for the black craft to slip through. Inside was a dark cavern, the ceiling dripping with mineral water. The man cut the engines to low power. From outside, the hunters roared past, not seeing where they'd gone. The girl's heart pounded in the silence, but the silence didn't last. A red light flashed on the console. They've scanned the canyon. They know we're still here, he said. He powered the engines back up, the roar echoing off the cave walls. The black craft shot out of the cavern and straight toward the ocean again. The hunters were already turning to meet them. This time, the man didn't run. He flew straight at the nearest skimmer. The alien pilot didn't expect it. Swerving at the last second, the man fired 2 quick bursts from the ship's cannons. The skimmer exploded in a shower of blue sparks, pieces falling into the waves. The last hunter pushed its engines to full power. It chased them all the way to the edge of the misty ocean. The man swerved suddenly, flying into a low bank of thick white fog. Inside the fog, everything was silent except the hum of their own engines. The girl waited, tense, then a flash of light, a loud explosion somewhere in the mist. The hunter had crashed. They emerged from the fog into clear air. The ocean stretched endlessly beneath them, and the stars shone cold above. The man finally eased the throttle. That's the last of them for now, he said. The girl didn't answer. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore. It was something else, something sharper. She realized she was no longer just a prisoner running for her life. She was part of something she didn't understand yet, and whatever it was only getting started. The hidden ship, the black craft, flew on for hours over the endless ocean. The girl sat in the co-pilot seat, silent, watching the rippling waves far below. The stars above shifted slowly as the ship moved. The man didn't speak much, his eyes fixed on the instruments. Every so often, he would glance at a small tracker on the console, as if making sure no red dots appeared. Finally, a dark shape rose from the horizon. At first, she thought it was an island, jagged and black against the night sky. But as they got closer, she saw the glint of metal. It wasn't an island at all. It was a massive structure floating above the water. Its surface was patched with mismatched plates of steel. Tall antennas jutted into the air like broken bones. Faint blue lights pulsed along its sides. It looked abandoned, but she could feel it wasn't. The man tapped the controls. A section of the structure's side shifted, opening into a narrow hangar entrance. Yellow guide lights flickered along the floor inside. "Hold on," he said, bringing the craft in smoothly. The hangar doors closed behind them with a heavy metallic clang, sealing out the night inside. The hangar was dim and quiet. Old human tech filled the wall: scanners, supply crates, weapons racks. Some equipment was covered in dust, some was freshly cleaned. There were no aliens here, only the echoes of the ship's engines. The man shut everything down and stood. "This is safe," he said simply. She wasn't sure if he meant the place, or the fact that they had survived this long. He walked to a control panel on the wall and tapped a code into it. The floor beneath them rumbled. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a long corridor lit by soft white light. She followed him inside, still clutching the cloak around her. The corridor opened into a larger room that felt like the heart of the hidden base. A round table stood in the center, covered in maps and star charts. Screens along the walls showed live feeds of distant systems, some peaceful, some burning under battle fire. She could see human ships in a few of the images. Big, blocky, and scarred from war. She had never seen human fleets in person before. It made her feel both proud and small at the same time. The man walked to a metal locker, opened it, and pulled out a clean set of clothes, simple gray shirt and dark pants. "Change into these," he said, pointing to a side room. "They'll fit." She hesitated, then nodded when she returned. The man was leaning over the table, his hands resting on the edges, staring at a glowing star map. He didn't look up when he spoke. "They'll keep coming." She froze. "Who will?" "Everyone who saw you at the market," he said. "Not because you're human," he added, finally lifting his eyes to hers. "It's because of this." He reached into his cloak and pulled out a small device. It looked like a scanner, but when he pressed a button, a thin beam of light swept over her wrist. The beam hit the simple metal bracelet she'd been wearing since she was taken, something she'd never been able to remove. The scanner beeped, and the bracelet glowed faintly. She stepped back, startled. "What is that?" she asked. "You've been carrying it the whole time," he said. "And you don't even know what it is." He turned the bracelet in the light, and for the first time, she saw faint etchings on its surface, tiny lines that pulsed like veins of light. "This isn't just metal," he said. "It's an ancient key. Human records call it the Shard of Meridian." Her brow furrowed. "A key to what?" "To something every empire in this part of the galaxy would kill for," he said quietly. "A weapon. Or maybe something worse." She shook her head. "I don't understand." "Why me?" "That's the part I don't know," he admitted. "But someone put it on you for a reason. And they didn't take it off even when you were captured. That means they wanted you alive until the right buyer could claim you." He straightened and began pacing slowly. "I'm not a traitor. And I'm not a smuggler," he said. "I'm part of the human resistance." Her eyes widened. She had heard whispers of them in prison camps. A scattered force of humans hiding in the shadows, striking against alien control. He met her gaze. "We've been losing for years. The shard might be the only thing that changes that." She took a step back. "You think I should give it to you?" "I think you should decide who it goes to," he said. "But know this, if you keep it, they will come for you again, and again, and they will never stop." Silence hung in the room. The hum of the hidden base's systems was the only sound. The girl looked down at the glowing lines of the bracelet. She didn't feel powerful. She still felt like the frightened captive from the market. But something deep inside her shifted. For the first time, she felt like her life meant something more than just surviving. Finally, she looked up at him. "What happens if I help you?" His expression didn't change. "Then you stop running," he said, "and start fighting." The truth revealed, the man didn't answer her right away. Instead, he walked to the far side of the room and tapped a series of commands into the wall. Console. The lights dimmed and a holographic projector rose from the center of the table. A beam of pale blue light spilled into the air, forming the image of a broken world floating in darkness. The girl stepped closer. "What is that?" she asked. The man's voice was low, almost reverent. "Meridian." Her brows knit together. "I've never heard of it." "You wouldn't have," he said. "They erased it from every map 200 years ago." The hologram shifted, showing a living planet, oceans glittering like silver, forests stretching across continents, great cities shining under twin moons. But then the image flickered, and darkness spread across the surface like spilled ink. Flames erupted, oceans boiled, and cities crumbled into dust. "What happened?" she whispered. "The first alien war against humans," he said. "They came not for conquest, but for this." The hologram zoomed in, showing a massive structure buried deep in the planet's crust. It looked like a spire of black crystal, its surface covered with the same glowing lines as the bracelet on her wrist. "That's the core of Meridian," he said. "No one knows who built it, not even the oldest alien races. Some say it's a weapon that can rewrite the laws of physics. Others think it's a machine that can reshape entire worlds." The image changed again, showing the spire shattering, fragments scattering across space. One piece was lost forever, he continued. The other pieces were hunted, hidden, stolen. His gaze shifted to her wrist. You're wearing the last one. Her heart skipped a beat. That's impossible. Why would I have it? That's the question, he said. Either someone wanted to keep it safe, or someone wanted you to be found with it. He stepped closer. His eyes locked on hers. And both answers are dangerous. She stared down at the bracelet. It didn't look like a weapon, just a strange piece of metal, cool against her skin. But now, she could almost feel a pulse inside it, faint but steady. Can it hurt people? She asked. It can do more than that, he said. It can turn the tide of the galaxy. He turned back to the console and brought up another hologram. This one showed alien war fleets. Massive ships bristling with weapons, surrounding burning human colonies. This is what's coming, he said. They're already moving to crush the last human strongholds. If they get the shard before us, we'll have no chance left. She wrapped her arms around herself. I don't know how to fight, she said quietly. You'll learn, he replied. His voice steady, she shook her head. I'm not like you, fast, strong, dangerous. He gave a faint smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. You don't have to be me, he said. You just have to be ready to do what's necessary. He pressed another button on the table, and the hologram changed again, this time showing a network of hidden bases across different star systems. These are the resistance safe zones, he said. Most are already compromised, but there's one left. He pointed to a small glowing point near the edge of the map. If we reach it, we can prepare. She stepped closer. And if we don't? Then the hunters catch us, he said flatly, and they'll take the shard to whoever paid for you at the market. She swallowed hard. And who was that? His jaw tightened. A syndicate. Lord named Varys. The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it made her shiver. Varys controls an entire sector, he continued. Slaves, fleets, armies, and he's obsessed with ancient weapons. If he gets the shard, the galaxy burns. Silence hung between them. The low hum of the base's systems was the only sound. Finally, she took a deep breath. I don't want to run anymore, she said. I want to help, he studied her for a long moment before nodding. Then you'll train, he said. Every weapon, every survival skill, every trick I know. He reached into his cloak and placed a small, sleek pistol on the table. It was lighter than she expected when she picked it up. First lesson, he said. Never wait for the enemy to make the first move. Asterisk, a dangerous alliance, the training began at dawn, though dawn was only a matter of the base's lights dimming and then brightening again. There was no real sunrise here, only the endless hum of machines and the faint vibration of the ocean far below. The man woke her with a short command. Up, we start now. No greetings. No gentle words, just the tone of someone who had no time to waste. The first lesson was the pistol. She held it awkwardly at first, her hands trembling, feet apart. He instructed, circling her like a predator, shoulders loose. Breathe. The weapon felt cold and heavy in her hands. He pointed at a row of small, floating training drones. Don't think, aim, fire. The first few shots missed completely. Blue bolts hissing into the wall. He didn't sigh or scold. He simply adjusted her grip and guided her stance. Your target isn't just the drone, he said. It's the space where the drone will be. She frowned, trying again. This time the shot struck dead center, and the drone shattered in. Burst of sparks. A small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Good, he said simply, and moved on. After weapons came survival drills. He took her through the narrow maintenance tunnels of the base, showing her blind corners and emergency escape routes. He pointed out food rations, hidden water filters, medical kits. You never know when the base will be your prison instead of your shelter, he said. She didn't ask what he meant, she understood enough. In the evenings they sparred. The first time he knocked her flat on her back in less than 2 seconds. Again, he said, offering no hand to help her up. By the end of the week, She lasted almost 10 seconds. Her body ached, but she didn't complain. Every bruise felt like proof she was becoming someone new. Between the training sessions, the man kept watch on the base's sensors. Small alerts flashed on the screens every now and then, unidentified ships in distant sectors, encrypted transmissions. Intercepted, she noticed his jaw tighten more each time. One night she finally asked, "They're coming, aren't they?" He didn't look away from the screen. "They're already here." The image on the monitor showed a fleet black ships shaped like the bones of giant beasts, their hulls covered in jagged armor. The insignia was unmistakable even to her three. Vertical lines burned into the metal. "Varus," he said quietly. He zoomed in on one of the ships, and her stomach turned. It was massive. Its sides lined with hangars big enough to swallow entire towns. Lights glowed from hundreds of small windows. "Scouts first," he explained. "They map the area, mark targets, find weaknesses. And then?" She asked. "Then the warships come," he said. "They don't leave survivors." A heavy silence settled over the room. For the first time, she felt the weight of the shard on her wrist, not as a mystery, but as a target, something that painted her in bright red for the entire galaxy to see. That night, she couldn't sleep. The hum of the base felt louder, the walls closer. She found herself standing in the training room, staring at the pistol on the table. Her reflection in its polished metal didn't look like the frightened girl from the market anymore. But she wasn't a soldier either, not yet. She heard footsteps behind her. "You're awake," he said. "So are you," she replied. He stepped beside her, looking at the weapon in her hands. "When this starts," he said, "I can't protect you every second." "I know," she said, her voice firm. "I'm not asking you to." A loud alarm cut through the room. Red lights flashed along the walls, and the hum of the base shifted into a deep, urgent pulse. He moved fast to the control room, and she followed. On the main screen, dozens of red dots had appeared, moving in fast from the edges of the map. "Too soon," he muttered. "They found us." A comm signal flashed, distorted, but clear enough to make out a voice. It was deep, cold, and calm. "Human ship," the voice said. "Give us the girl and the artifact, and you may leave with your life." She didn't need to be told who it was. Varys himself was speaking. The man glanced at her. "We can't outrun them now," he said. "Then what?" She asked. "We fight," he said simply. His hand rested on the edge of the table, his eyes on the incoming fleet. Her hand tightened on the pistol. This was no longer just his battle. It was hers too.